This is KamehaRadio, a Dragon Ball podcast. Hi, everybody. This is Alex here. We're just gonna call this a mini episode. we're not gonna go into any like deep topics or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to put it out there and just talk about why we've been away for so long, what our plans going forward are with the podcast, stuff like that. So just kind of letting you guys know and keeping you all kind of in the loop of what's going on, because I know a lot of you enjoy the podcast. And I'm pretty sure those of you that do enjoy the podcast probably do not appreciate us being away for as long as we have been. So I do want to at least give you guys a little bit of an idea of kind of like what's going on in the background. So there's a couple reasons why we've been away for as long as we kind of have. First and foremost, scheduling has always been kind of an issue. Me and David, we have our own lives, our own jobs outside of content creation that we do. We don't always have the ability to be able to sync up, to be able to have these types of discussions and come together and do that. And it's been difficult to kind of work that into both of our schedules. I'm off every weekend, but David is not off every weekend. So doing it every weekend has not been able to go well, just due to the fact that his schedule on the weekends is varying depending on if he's night shift or day shift for that weekend, whatever. So scheduling has really been kind of a big part of it. We thought about doing it during the week at times too, but I work during the week. So we would either have to do it really early in the morning before I have to start getting ready for work in the day, or we'd have to do it late at night when I may or may not have the energy to be able to like put out a guys. I can't really be interactive or funny on certain days depending on how my day is, but that's neither here nor there. So scheduling is the first part. The second part of it is that Daima is obviously, like, as of the time of this airing, Daima has finished. Dragon Ball Daima is done and over with, and it's really hard for us to put content out there and have discussion videos like the week of each episode airing, especially towards the climax of the series when spoilers are kind of a thing. Really big spoilers dropped in the past couple of episodes before the finale, and honestly, it just makes sense for us not to be talking about spoilers the week that the big spoilers kind of happen, right? Everyone's very protective about spoilers. Everybody wants to be able to experience the show and the franchise, movies, whatever, without having the story ruined for them in any particular way. So for us, it didn't really make too much sense, at least at the time, especially with scheduling being an issue, for us to like hop on here for an hour every week to talk about what happened in the latest episode, when everyone doesn't want to know what happened in the latest episode because I haven't gotten around to seeing it. So obviously spoilers are another big thing, that kind of affect how we're able to put these episodes out. So now that Daima is said and done, though, those are the two main reasons why we've been away for as long as we have. Now that Daima is said and done, and the future of Dragon Ball is kind of up in the air at the moment, in terms of, are we getting a new show? Are we getting a new movie? Obviously, we got games and stuff that are being released and whatnot. But like, where do we go from here as a podcast? Where do we approach this? So here is what the current plan is right now in terms of what we're doing. So obviously this is going to go up this weekend at some point, either Saturday the 1st or Sunday the 2nd of March. Then next weekend, I'm out of town. However, I just did a recorded an episode with Phil Plays TCG. He's joining us on the podcast to discuss generic stuff about Daima, just our overall feelings of the show, kind of talking about what we loved about the show, what we disliked about the show, and we talk about pretty much everything in between except for what happens in the finale. And we kind of leave out a little bit of a chunk in the last couple episodes, like episodes 18, 19. We don't really go too deep into it outside of like the big talking points of those episodes. But the finale, we're choosing not to spoil the finale for those who have not gotten around to seeing it. There's still people who haven't even watched episode 1 yet. So we decided to keep it relatively generic. We decided to kind of keep it with no spoilers into the finale or what happens in the finale during like that episode. And then we talk about some Set 5 Fusion World came out. So we're talking about Fusion World there. Then the week after that, Uni XTCG is going to be joining us again, Universe X. He's going to come and join us on the podcast the following week for an all spoilers, all like completely open topic discussion about Daima. He's going to be joining us. Watashi Dro, who's another content creator for Fusion World. He is also looking to join us as well, and David should be on with us in that episode as well. So that's the plan as of right now in terms of what we will be, in terms of what the podcast is going to be like in the next couple weeks. In terms of what we're looking to do going forward, it's really kind of up for debate. Obviously, we're still going to talk about Fusion World here and there. How we're going to go about doing that without the buffer of Daima being around, it's still in the thought process. We're still kind of thinking about it. We're going to talk about Fusion World. We're going to talk about new releases probably as they kind of like reveal themselves and stuff like that. Obviously, we're going to have our pre-set release discussion and then our post-set release discussion. Like Fusion World content in terms of how we discuss it on the podcast, that's not changing. That's going to stay relatively the same. I think going forward, one of the things I would like to do is kind of get more into more like discussion type stuff. Like I want to have a long discussion with David about GT. He went through and he watched all of GT. He never watched GT in its entirety before, up until before Daima. He watched it he watched it before Daima released. So I want to like really like talk to him about like what GT, how he feels about GT, being a first time viewer of that, and just what his general thoughts are on that. I've talked about my stance on it before, but I would like to be able to go into more detail as to why I feel about GT the way I do. Then we could do like more generic like topics. We could talk about, obviously there was a big like email thread, not email thread, but there was a I can't think right now. There was a Twitter thread or X thread where there was a radio show that did an interview with all of Toriyama's assistants and like assistant producers and stuff like that. So maybe we could do like an episode of stuff like that where we kind of talk about those interviews and kind of talk about like what the thought process was going into like Dragon Ball Z and like the transition from Dragon Ball and stuff like that. Like there's other talking points we can talk about with that. Another thing that I would like to do, and I'm trying to get into the works, is I would love to do interviews with people within the cast. I would love to be able to. I've reached out to Stephanie Nadolny, who is the voice actress for Kid Goku and Gohan from Z. I've reached out to her and her team to see if we can maybe get an interview with her and kind of talk about her experiences with Daima. Nothing's confirmed. I don't want to put nothing's confirmed. She's a very busy woman. She's got a lot of cons and stuff that she's going to, but maybe down the line, like I would love to reach out to publicists of some of these voice actors and actresses and be able and have a discussion and kind of talk about their experience with Dragon Ball and just kind of, gets get some inflection in terms of where they see their characters and stuff like that. Like I want to get into a deep dive of these actors that portray these characters and like really kind of get to know how they feel about their characters outside of just what they've talked about at like cons and stuff like that. So that's something that I would like to do as well. But in terms of how we're going to approach the podcast, like how often we're going to upload, I think it's going to relatively be up in the air in terms of if it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly still. Like there's no way for me to really know what like what the future kind of holds. Right. I want to continue the podcast. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. This is something that has been like, I want to have like a place where I can openly talk about Dragon Ball that's not within my general content. And like kind of bring other people on. Like the idea of the podcast is just to have a general space to talk about it while also like getting people involved within the Dragon Ball community, like other content creators and obviously and stuff. And like kind of get other people's perspectives of it too. Like it's not just my perspective, it's getting other people's perspective on things. Phil Plays TCG has talked about how he like doesn't like Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta in Daima, and like it's good to have his type of perspective and how he sees the form on the podcast, and it kind of gives a bit of derision from like it kind of gives people a different perspective. Right. So I want to kind of just have that out there. Yeah. So, I mean, that's why we've been on hiatus for so long. That's the current scheduling in terms of how we want to go about, in terms of the upcoming weeks, in terms of what the content's going to look like in the coming weeks. And then just some minor talking points on like how we wanted to, like the type of content we want to talk about now that Daima's kind of done. Maybe we'll do like a rewatch. Maybe we could do a rewatch. I know there's one thing that I and David definitely have not done, and that is watch the Dragon Ball Heroes promo series. That's one thing we haven't done. So I think one thing we could do is we could do like a watch party, either a watch party or just do like a binge of the series and kind of talk about our feelings on Dragon Ball Heroes and stuff like that. I don't know. There's Dragon Ball is such a big like nest egg for content that it makes sense to continue to do this and just have general talking points and just have overall discussions rather than just making it specifically about Daima and stuff. So, but yeah, so that's that. And then I guess one final thing to talk about before I wrap this mini episode up is, so I'm not going to get into the specifics just because it's personal stuff and I'm sure he doesn't want that all out there. Right. So, but David, as you can see, David's not here with me. When the Phil Plays TCG episode goes live next week, he's not going to be there. He should be with us when UniX TCG joins us, and Watashi Dro joins us to talk about Daima in 2 weeks from now. I'm sure that he'll be there for then. But he's going through some stuff right now, and he's not readily available at this current time to be actively doing content for the podcast. So, and I know he's taken a minor step back from his own content creation journey of posting videos and stuff over on his channel to like take care of himself. And by all means, we want him to just focus on himself anyway. So, so in the meantime, while he's away, he'll join us when he's able to join us. Cause he's just as much a part of this podcast as I am. And I hate that I have to continue the podcast, certain weeks without him, but it's like, I want him to take care of himself. And that's the more important thing. So in his absence, when he's not able to join us for certain podcasts, I will be, like I said, I'll be inviting like other creators, other people to join me on the podcast. Like I said, next week we invited Phil Plays TCG to talk about Daima, his overall feelings on Daima, and set 5 of Fusion World. we just did that recording like shortly before I started recording this one to upload this weekend. But we got him joining us, obviously UniXTCG, Universe X, Watashi Dro. I want to get Tarmo Tim and whatnot on a Tim. I want to get Tarmo Tim on the pod at some point. I want to get Jay Fanta. Jay Fanta might be a little harder to get on the pod just because he's on the other side of the world from where I'm at. But I want to reach out to him and talk to him and see if he would be down to join the pod at some point, especially after the finals. Like I want to get his perspective from the competitive standpoint of like him going into the finals and stuff like that. So definitely want to reach out and see if he wants to do that. But yeah, we're just so. Like I said, I'm kind of tail spinning. When David's not able to be here, we're going to try and get some guests to fill in his spot until he is suitable and ready to join us on the regular again and kind of hang out with us. He's fine. He's fine. He's just got he's got situations going on that he's got to take care of. Again, I'm not going to talk about the personal stuff like that. That's personal, and I'm not going to bring up what those things are. But he's safe. He's good. He just needs time for himself. So, but that is going to do it for this mini episode of KamehaRadio, a Dragon Ball podcast. Thank you guys so much for kind of hanging out with us and just really just kind of being patient as we kind of work through this transition of of being available, being not available, and like in terms of just the shift of the content that we're going to be discussing going forward and stuff like that. So yeah, like it's just, I mean, this is just a short episode. It's just to kind of talk about what's been going on behind the scenes, and just to talk about what we're doing going forward. So, but I appreciate all the love. I appreciate all the support, for the podcast, for my own personal channel, everything else in between. I do greatly appreciate it. So, with that said though, that is going to do it for today's episode of KamehaRadio, a Dragon Ball podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening in, and we will see you guys all next week in next week's episode. Peace.